Hey guys, Mark Holthe here, Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher. I am jumping on here. It's just about 6 p.m. I've got a little bit of time that I was able to carve out. This week I was not able to do my EE Live Q&A because I have just had a ton of things going on in my office. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to have to postpone it till next week. But today, as I got thinking about it, I never want to leave you guys without some help each week. And yes, I've got a lot going on in my office. And if I could move out of the way here, I've got a few things piled up there. If you guys could look over here and see all the other stuff that's all piled up. Usually I like to try to keep my office somewhat somewhat together, not too messy, but lately it's just been a complete disaster. So with that being said, there's my life. I thought what I would do is I just jump on for a few minutes here, and I mean a few minutes. I probably have about 30 minutes just to answer live listener questions. Those of you who are fortunate enough to be surfing the Express Entry Law private Facebook page right at this moment, and fortunate enough to see it pop up on your timelines, you guys are going to get rewarded. While we're waiting for a few people to connect and log in, I just want to share a little bit of what's happening in my life and get you guys up to speed with what's going on with the Holthe clan here in lovely Lethbridge, Alberta. And this is the first thing I'll show you right here. So it is Christmas. And this is a picture that we took with our lovely timer on my phone in front of our Christmas tree, which you can't really see behind us, but we're all decked out. So we just finished decorating our Christmas tree. And my wife, you can see, has got the nativity up there above the fireplace. And we had just an awesome, awesome time. And so we are closing in on Christmas season. And this is a super, super fun part of the season for our family. Michaela there has the temporary elf costume on there. And then there's Connor. And as most of you folks know, my two oldest are off serving missions for our church in different parts of the world. And we're so excited because this Christmas, right on Christmas Day, we get to Skype with them and talk. And so it's been, the last time we were able to do that was on Mother's Day, which was in May. And so to have the opportunity to connect with them again is super exciting. And so my daughter is in Indiana and my son is down in Suriname in South America. And so we're going to see if there's a way maybe we can combine them both, but we're not sure because they probably will be calling at different times. But that's what we have going on. And then right now, I'll share this one with you guys as well. There's my daughter, Michaela. The snow was drifting down and I couldn't help myself because she was licking snow off of the pine boughs. And this one she'd actually already gotten to, and you can see a lot of the snow has already been licked off the branches. But that's what kids like to do in Canada in the winter, and she is no different than all of them. This one here is just a little bit different, different angle. But yeah, the snow was super sparkly and just light and fluffy. And that's the kind of snow that I love. And part of the reason I love that snow so much is because of this picture right here, which I'll pull up. Hopefully everybody can see it. And I think you guys know what this is. Those of you who are in cold winter climates know this. But look at those trees. The weather and the humidity combined with the snow forms these ghosts, we call them. Yes, that's right, ghosts. Just like the apparitions that float around and haunt your houses. But these ghosts, we call them, form in some, this was actually in Montana. And my family and I, we are going down, not this weekend, but the next weekend, right before Christmas, to spend one day skiing here in Whitefish. And this is in Montana. And that's exactly what the trees look like. It is so cool. And then the last picture I'll show you is what it can really look like. And you can see the chairlift off to the right there. But these ghosts, they form some crazy, crazy shapes when they get loaded down with all of the snow and just the ice crystals and how it forms. So I'm sure you guys in your countries all have really cool things, but this is one of the things that I really, really enjoy um, when we go down to Montana, and we haven't done it for years. I've just been so busy with work and everything, and so haven't had a lot of opportunity to do that. But I just thought I'd share a few things with you guys. I'm also gonna, while we're waiting for people to the rest of the whoever's watching this to jump in, I am and I recognize, guys, that this is at a pretty crazy time. 5:52 p.m. here is probably just about 6 a.m. in the morning over in Asia. But some people who are on their way home, potentially from work, might be able to catch this one live. But ultimately, our this little Q&A session that I'm doing here, I want to give as much time as possible before I start answering questions. But I'm just gonna open it up here so I can see comments. Okay, so Nisha says hi, Mark. Aziz says hello, Mark. Hi, guys. Now I can see your comments. All right. Now I want to just remind everybody, I haven't posted this for a while, but the reality is I am seeking new administrators for the Express Entry Law private Facebook group, and you can see the requirements here. What I want you to do is simply send me a Facebook message to Mark Holthe and you must put these things in here. If you don't have attention to detail, then I'm not going to add you as a moderator, essentially an admin within our group. So you have to indicate why you'd be a good admin, where you live, because I really want to get a nice mix of people all over the world, and how long you've been a member of the group. And obviously those who have been in the group participating for a longer period of time are going to have a greater opportunity to be selected than those who are just new to the group. So if you are interested, please give me a shout out and let me know why you think you'd be a good admin, and I'll consider you to join the ranks of the moderators of the Express Entry Law private Facebook group. All right, so we'll pull that one off of there and we'll shift back. And that's kind of what's going on in my life, guys. It's been a little hectic, like I said, lately, but that's okay. Everyone at some point in time has everything just all crashing down all at once, and that was no different for me. I think you guys will have also seen that I had posted previously that I'm looking for a new immigration paralegal, and that is the case. Charlene, who was with my office, is no longer with us, and I am now looking for someone to fill her place. So if you are in Canada and you are a permanent resident and you're looking at new opportunities and you think Lethbridge might be the place for you, come and send me a resume or a CV and apply for the position. And you can just send it right to my email address right here, guys, mholthe@stringham.ca. And I would love to, see who is interested in filling that role. All right. With that being said, like I said, if anyone here, you can now start posting your questions here in the feed. And if you have any questions about Express Entry, I'm going to answer those live right now for probably another 20 minutes or so. So if you have some questions that you would like to be answered, you can start posting them now. All right. Serenity says, hi, Mark. Hello, how are you? Okay, let's see. Our first question here comes from MD Rashidal. He says, sir, our file is in the background security check for almost a year after adding newborn and giving additional documents. How long will it take for PPR? ITA received last year, June. Rashidal, that is a completely unacceptable amount of time. And I can tell you, for me, if I was acting for you, you would not be stuck in this situation, because I would be following up. I would be sending inquiries. I would be requesting status updates. And if I was not satisfied with where things were at and how things were dragging on, then there are certain applications that can be filed to encourage the government to process. So one of them is called a mandamus application that can be filed in federal court if an application has been stalled out for a long period of time. Now, whether 1 year is considered long enough for the purposes of a federal court application, well, that's to be determined. But ultimately, taking that extra step sometimes, or even suggesting to immigration that that might be something we have to do, sometimes we'll encourage them to move forward, because at the end of the day, you're not trying to force them to do something. You're just trying to get them to complete, or at least be reasonable in what they're doing, so that you can plan your life. And if they're doing background checks and your country is not responding, well, yeah, they can't control that. That's not their responsibility. It's not their problem. But ultimately, if you are stuck and there's no action on your file, in other words, they haven't even looked at it or taken any forward steps in a very, very long period of time, then yeah, I've got a concern with that, and I would definitely investigate. And the reality is, Rashidul, if you did want to retain me to assist, we can definitely look into that. All right, that's actually a really good question. And I know some of you are just stuck as well, even aside from adding a child into your EAPR. And recognize the processing times are set at 6 months. 80% of the applications are supposed to be processed within 6 months. That's the service level standard that the government has set for themselves. And obviously, if certain things happen, applications can go longer. And that happens sometimes. And when it comes to background checks and things like that, the reality is some countries are just slow in getting that information back to IRCC when they're doing those checks. So it's not IRCC's fault. It's just the reality of a lack of communication from the country they're trying to get information from, or the process that they've set in place to do security checks based on your nationality. And that's just something that you can't always control. So with that being said, yeah, I think you're beyond where it should be, but doing those standard things, requesting GCMS notes. If you're in Canada, sometimes we'll go through an MP, a member of parliament, and ultimately doing a case-specific inquiry. All of those things we tap into, and we just slowly escalate them. If there's no response or nothing is happening, then we take the next step, and then the next step. So that's how I deal with it. All right, great question. Okay, Shivani says, any chances for CRS to drop below 440? I don't think so, Shivani. I really do not. We have not seen it drop below 440 all year. And even at that level, we are at record numbers of invitations being extended to people. So the total number of ITAs for 2018, and we are today, what do we got? December the 12th. We have exceeded or right into that range where we've issued more ITAs this year than any year before. So if that's the case, and we're still only getting rounds of invitations at the lowest 440, I don't see it going any lower. And the reality is too, when you think about everything, the last draw just today was 445. And I want to give a shout out to all my awesome clients out there who received their ITAs today, and you know who you are. We're going to be getting those EAPRs filed ASAP. So super excited, and that's another reason why I, with my clients, make a significant effort to get all documents before we even submit the profile, because when we submit it, I know you're going to get drawn, and so we don't waste any time. All right, so shout out to all of you awesome clients out there. All right, next question here. Let's see what we got here. This lovely scrolling comment section. Okay, Aziz says, Mark, for proof of funds, post ITA, I have a letter from the bank stating I have $23,000 in savings. Is this letter sufficient, or do I need to add a bank statement or credit card bill or info? Ugh, itchy nose. Aziz, I'm going to share my screen with all of you guys and show you exactly where you go, which is the EE completeness check. So this is one place you can go for information. Also, you have the ability to go to your own personalized document checklist. So when you reach that stage, beside each of the documents that they're requesting, they have a little information button that you can click that then tells you what the document needs to look like. So I go to the EE completeness check here. I probably should have got a drink of water. Hooray, I had a little bit left over. And then I search for proof of funds, and that'll take me right here. And all you need is the letter, but the letter has to be specific. So you can see right here, printed on letterhead of the financial institution. It must include your name, the contact info for the institution in case they want to reach out to them, account numbers, the date each account was opened, and the current balance, as well as the average balance for the past 6 months. And as always, IRCC reserves the right to request additional documents if they feel that that is necessary. All right. So, great question. And let's now move on to the next one here. Okay, so the next question, if I can find it, this is Trinity says, if my husband is in Canada and in a Class B job, but his work permit is dependent on my study visa, will his experience be considered or can it be extended on the basis of his job? Okay, so what you have to realize, Trinity, is work experience in Canada, as long as you're on a work permit, it doesn't matter if it's an open work permit, which is your husband's, a C-42, I believe, which is issued to foreign spouses of international students studying in Canada. That experience is valid for the purposes of Canadian work experience. It just has to meet the minimum thresholds, 30 hours per week, skilled occupation, those kinds of things. But it doesn't have to be a named employer on that work permit like it's needed if you're trying to get a job offer. So when it comes to open work permits for spouses, absolutely you can count that work experience. There's no issues at all. I'm just looking, you said here, or can it be extended on the basis of his job? I don't know exactly what that means, but if your studies are coming to an end, you should be eligible for a post-grad work permit, and then your husband could then get a C-41 work permit, which is if you're working in a skilled occupation, then he's eligible for getting an open work permit, a spousal, under that category. So hopefully that will answer your questions. Okay, Rashadal says, sir, any chances of denial at this stage? Wow, my friend, I can't answer that. Not at all. I'm almost positive, Rashadal, that you are probably not an Al-Qaeda warrior. And so when they're doing security checks and your police clearances the certificates that you've provided are probably all clear. So sometimes it takes time to add children. One thing I will tell you, Rashadul, go into your Express Entry, your EAPR, and actually go and look at your document checklist. So the one that shows what you've submitted, and make sure that you don't have a spot open somewhere where they've opened up a new section for you to upload something with respect to your child. That did happen to me before, where an individual had a child outside of the country, right at the stage when they were getting their confirmation of permanent residence, and we had to add the child. They told us to upload the documents directly through a case-specific inquiry, so I did it, and we waited, and we waited, and we waited even longer, and guess what? What was going on? I couldn't figure it out. So what I did was I went in, looked to see if I was somehow missing something, and sure enough, there was a section to upload new updated background declarations for the principal applicant and the spouse. And so that was something that it was probably holding everything up. Now, there was no expiry on it. It just was open perpetually. So I uploaded immediately. I submitted another case-specific inquiry, which said, yo, you guys did not tell me I needed to upload it to the portal as well. And then finally things started moving forward. Okay. Great question. I'm going to have a little drink here. I love these little Contigo things. You guys have these before? I should actually get, hey, Contigo, sponsor my Facebook Live. These are pretty good though. And then you can see on this side, I have a fine accounting firm called Avail, who I do work, so I do work with them. We team up on business law applications and things like that, and cross-border work. So shout out to Scott Rowland. Of course, he doesn't listen to this podcast, this Express Entry Live video, because he's here as an accountant in Canada. Okay, all right, let's continue on, moving down the list. Okay, Sharmila says, any specific reason for the process slowdown? My AOR is July 26th and still waiting in IP2. All right, guys, it's a pretty simple reason. They have plenty of applications. They're not in a hurry to meet their quotas for this year. There are only so many officers going around. And remember, boy, I got an itchy nose today. Remember that when it comes to processing applications, the government's service level standard is 6 months. So 80% of the applications processed in 6 months. And some of you may have seen this notification that now they have this fancy little timeline that shows where you're at with a projection of when your application is going to be processed. And everybody is heralding this as some amazing development by the government, which it is nice to have a little visual representation. But guess what, guys? That timeline is basically from the date that you submitted your application to the end, and the estimated processing is, guess what? 6 months. And it's 6 months for everyone. So ultimately, we'll see if it shortens once they start to process the application quicker. Because you guys know, some people get them back in 3 months, some 4, some 6. But right now, when I look at the processing times, it's the start date when the EAPR was submitted and acknowledged as being received. And it's 6 months from that date is when the timeline comes to an end. And so understand, everybody, that, yeah, as far as the whole processing, July, so for Sharmila here, we take July, August, September, October, November, December, 5 months. You're still within that range. So slow down, volume. There's not a pressing need to meet quotas because they've got lots. And ultimately, every officer is different. So good question. Okay, let's see. Who's next here? Nisha. Good to see you. I'm filling my personal history section. Is it important to put the exact date for the 10 years history, as I don't remember? And is it okay to put unemployed or homemaker in between jobs for only about few weeks or months multiple times? Yeah, Nisha, all of this is totally fine. If you can't remember the exact dates, well, you have to put something in. And so sometimes when I can't remember an exact date, I will just put like January the 1st, okay? And I'll put it to, February the 28th, and then the next day, March the 1st. Like, I will go by the actual, like the last or the first day of the month. And then I always, in a letter of explanation, state, during this time period in my personal history, I could not remember the exact date. So I have only put in a first as the day because I can't remember and I needed to be able to close my profile. So that's how I deal with that. And then when it comes to unemployed, absolutely. You can totally put unemployed. There is nothing wrong with that. And if you're a homemaker, you rock that. Homemakers are the whole thing that drives our society. I'll tell you, the best thing in the world my wife and I ever were able to do was to give our children the gift of allowing her to be able to stay at home with them. Excuse me. I had a little bit of a sneeze there. Okay. Like I said, this is not scripted, guys. It's just raw. So anyways, the best gift we could have given to my family and my kids was my awesome wife who was there home to take care of them. So you rock that. That's a fantastic thing. So no problem putting that in at all, Nisha. You wear that with pride. Okay. And yeah, if it's weeks or months, just put in exactly what you were doing during that time. Don't leave anything out. That's important. And by no means, if you're an accompanying spouse and you were working, don't put unemployed just because you think somehow by putting working, it's going to cause you to have to produce a work experience letter. I already did a video on this topic about some clients, and I haven't heard back from them, so I'm not sure how it played out, but who actually had represented that that the one accompanying spouse was unemployed when they were actually working, at least in the personal history section. All right. Boy, I've got a scratchy throat today. I'm just about out of water too. Okay, and I got a super itchy nose. It's like a combination of things. Okay, let's move forward here a little bit more. Srinidhi says, can open work permit be extended? Well, absolutely. If you're still a student and you're extending your study permit, then your spouse can extend their work permit. So if you're still in school, still studying, then yes, in those circumstances, when you submit your study permit extension, you can also get your an extension on your husband's open work permit. But when it comes to a post-grad work permit, once it's issued, you can't extend that. It's a one-time deal. And when it comes to the spouse, their work permit is locked into the expiry date on yours. So in those circumstances, you can't. And then ultimately, when it comes to what are your options after that, well, the employer is going to need to get a labor market impact assessment, or you could just hire me now and I can make sure that you don't run out of time and that you get your express entry done on time so that you can benefit from your postgrad without having to stress over what you're going to do because your express entry hasn't come back approved yet and you're running out of time on your work permits. And that actually reminds me, I've given so much thought to this process, guys. And the one service that I'm going to plug more than any other for you guys, I've decided to do a full one-to-one Mark and you document EAPR, PR, your passport, your profile, full review at half of what I charge full representation. Why do you need to pay me to have my assistant fill out your forms when you care about those more than anyone else in the world? You guys are highly educated. Your English is awesome. You have unbelievable attention to detail. And so why pay me an extra $2,500 to have me manage that process when you can put it together yourself? Contact me. I review everything with you. We have an awesome little Skype screen share session and we go through every single question. We get every question answered. We collectively together draft any letters of explanation that are needed. We review all the documents together. We make sure their employer letters are correct. We make sure your police clearances do not fail the very strict requirements of what they're looking for police certificates. Yes, I had that experience just recently. We got one of our clients' applications returned because we submitted a black and white color of a German police certificate versus a color copy. And did we know that we needed to? Yes. But my assistant, just when she was fixing things in the application process and making sure that the documents were in a format that was the right size, unfortunately, she, uploaded a black and white copy and the application got returned. And because of that, I had one very disappointed client, which I feel absolutely terrible about, who then decided to just submit it on their own because she felt she could no longer trust our office. And I don't blame her for a second. That has happened once to me since 2015 when Express Entry started, but it doesn't matter. Nobody is infallible. And despite our efforts going forward, we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that never, ever happens again. But I'm returning that client's money all back to her. And I just feel awful about it. So fortunately, it didn't prejudice her significantly. But still, it's a crazy, horribly volatile process. And even something so small as submitting a black and white copy of a police certificate instead of a colored one can get your application returned. All right. So basically what I'm doing is I'm meeting with the clients, and we are going through everything and we're submitting your application together. And so I'm charging $2,500 for that. And I can tell you that that service there, guys, is better than anything you're going to get overseas with an agent who you're hiring to do the whole application, who keeps your profile concealed, who doesn't let you have control over your own MyCIC account, who doesn't share the password, who doesn't tell you where your application is at, and who likely even submits it without fully consulting you as to what is going into that application. So, full transparency, and I love this option because you're hiring me, you're getting me, and you're getting the full weight of what I offer. All right, there's a plug for that. All right, so now Manny asks, he says, I'm on a closed work permit. I've applied for my husband's SOP, spousal open work permit, on the 14th of September with upfront medical and PC, but no reply from CIC yet, as the application has surpassed normal processing times. So can I contact CIC through web form to know the reason for delay? Okay, so let's take a look at this. You filed it online. Okay, so you're on a closed LMIA probably, or a NAFTA or something like that. You've applied for the open work permit on September the 14th. So September the 14th, September, October, November, December. We're basically 3 months. So what's 3 months? 90 days? Okay, let's go in and let's take a look. Let's see what the processing times are. So if we go here, IRCC processing times, and we click on here, and then we go to what we're asking for, which is temporary residence. Then we want a work permit with the same employer, is usually what I do because it's an extension. I'm assuming, but I'll show you something anyways. And we click get times. So online is 66 days, paper is 107. So I'm assuming online is what you submitted. So if we go back here, same employer, let's change this to new employer and submit it. You can see processing times are virtually the same. So in your situation, so we flip back here, in your situation, you said, should I inquire? The answer is yes, I would. You're beyond the regular processing times, and so you're well within your right to make a case-specific inquiry. If you're in Canada, call the call center and ask them. Find out what's going on, okay? Awesome. Great question. Okay, so moving on here. Okay, Manny says they replied last week that the application is in order. Can I again send them a reminder? No. If they've just replied last week and you just talk to them, don't submit requests every week. That's just going to tick them off. All right, Harpreet says, I'm a freelance translator working in this field for 5 years with many companies. How can I prove my experience meets the requirements? Oh, Harpreet, that is a whole different discussion. And I'll be honest, when I have independent contractors who are trying to claim their work experience, it involves a ton of work. In fact, my one client, and you know who you are, is going to unbelievable extents to claim her work experience as a professional musician. And whether you are a translator or whatever you are, the key always is to go back to the source. And that's what I'm going to do for you. Now, I have special videos that I've already created to help people through this process, but you're going to go back to the Completeness Check website, and then we're going to search for work experience or work history. Actually, proof of work is what we're going to do. Proof of work, and it takes me to here. And then we're going to go down here, and we're going to see that there is a section that's devoted to self-employed. This section here says that you need to provide articles of incorporation or evidence that you actually own a business, evidence of self-employment income. Well, how do you prove that? Well, if you're a freelancer, I'm assuming you have contracts with people and you want to provide confirmation of those contracts. In other words, your invoice and them paying it for the entire period in which you want to claim work experience for. So don't just provide one and say, hey, see, show, here's an invoice I rendered for this work I did doing this translating back 2 years ago. Don't do that. I actually encourage that people provide a sample of documents that cover all the 3 years. And remember, 3 years is probably all that you need to meet the maximum requirements if you've already met the minimum eligibility threshold with those 3 years of work experience in the Federal Skilled Worker Program selection selection criteria. I think I'm just about out of water. A little bit more. That's probably telling me I'm getting close to the end of this Q&A. Anyways, so that's what you're going to do for proving your income. Okay. Then documentation that the service provided and the payment details. So this combines with evidence of self-employment income. So income obviously is going to be like your bank statements, your financials that you have with your accountant that you file, taxes that you file with the government, those kinds of things. And then the invoices, like I said, and the proof of payment and the dates and those kinds of things to confirm that you are actually providing a service. So all of those things play a role in this process. And I try to get as many pieces of evidence from third parties that I've worked for. If you're translating for a company and you do a lot of work with them, then get that company to provide you with a letter saying, yes, we have engaged. We actually, let me just flip back here so I can stay on track. There we go. You can see how hard it is, right, guys? Harpreet. Yes, Harpreet was the one who asked the question. So They could say, yes, we've engaged Harpreet to do some translating for us, and we've used Harpreet services over this period of time. And if they wanted to talk about money, they could, but most probably don't. But you could, if they were willing to say, we've paid them this much money, Harpreet this much money to do this much translating, you can use that. But this is something that people book consults with me all the time because it's complicated. It's not something that you can really decipher easily. And don't trust everything that you see on the internet. Just because something worked well for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And that's the danger with relying on everything that you find just freely out there on the internet, is that every person's situation is different. And just because one person got something approved doesn't mean it's going to happen for you. All right? And then the key here, self-declared main duties or affidavits are just not acceptable. All right? All right, so there we go. Let's jump back here now and we'll go to the next question. Okay. This is fun. I like doing this. Except it's 6:23 and I have to hightail to our local library because I need to make sure that I cast my ballot for our member of our Legislative Assembly candidate for the United Conservative Party. So I've got to get back to the library and cast my vote for who we want to be our representative in the next provincial election, which is coming up. And so I've got to get over to the library and cast that vote before 8 p.m. and it's 6:23 right now. Okay, but that's okay. We are totally going to get through some more questions here before we do that. Okay, Go Cool says, can a month-old bank balance certificate and bank statement be used for the purpose of proof of funds? I would get exactly what the government says. So if we go to our page here and we go back to proof of funds, if they say that they want you to provide a letter and what that letter needs to look like right here, and I'll share my screen, if they provide these instructions for you when you're trying to establish proof of funds, then follow this to the letter, exactly what they ask for. The moment you depart from it, you're going to be faced with the situation of an officer having discretion. Maybe they feel what you've provided isn't good enough. So at all costs, if you can do it, do it. If you can't, then you have to look at other options. All right? Okay, good question. Okay, next one here. Let's see who's up. There's so much going on here. Shrinity says, Contigos are best. Yeah, they are. I love them. Okay, thanks, Mark. You're welcome. MD Rashidul says, thanks a lot, sir, for your superb answers. It was really, really helpful. You're very welcome. Aziz says, Mark, I had applied for Canada immigration twice before, okay, in 2013 and 14, which, yes, before express entry was started. The first time was returned, quota was full. Yep, they did that massive cull back there. And do you know why, guys, why they culled out all those applications? Because there was no express entry. If you met the minimum entry criteria for the Federal Skilled Worker Program, then you were in the queue and they had to process. And because they didn't adjust the pass mark, which is 67 points, there were, I think, over 600,000 people backed up in the queue. All right. Boy, I've got such this itchy nose. I don't know why it is. It must be allergies. Excuse me. Okay. So the question I think here is, didn't get file numbers. Now I'm post ITA stage and there's a question, have you applied? If I say yes, and second question is, you have applied permanent residency. I answer no. Is this right information? You're gonna disclose exactly what you did. So it says, have you applied for express entry? Yes. So sorry, you're going to say no if you haven't applied to express entry before. And then it says, have you applied for immigration? Then you say, yes, that's correct to that. Okay, so I'm just trying to say here, I got to go back and reread this question, Aziz. So, okay, so 2013 and 2014, both were before express entry. And then it was returned, never got a response. Okay, I'm post ITA. There's a question, have you applied for immigration before? The answer is yes. Second question is, have you applied for permanent residency? The answer is yes, because you will have. The Federal Skilled Worker Program is yes. And if you've submitted an application, then that means you've applied. So don't say no. There's no advantage to saying no. There's no benefit. By saying yes, it isn't going to do anything other than just confirm with them what they already know, because they've got your whole history there, even where your application was returned. And the one that went into some vat that never ever you heard from, well, that's a concern, because they should have probably responded, unless you just didn't qualify and they returned your application and you never got it. Okay, great questions. Okay, Visha says, hi Mark, thanks for your advice thus far. It really has been helpful. With regards to proof of funds, I stated that I would bring 20,000 Canadian to Canada, family of 3. Yep, that'll work. And my bank statement shows 50 at the time of PR submission. Is it okay for the 50 to be reduced to about 40 at the time of landing? Of course. If you've listed that you're only going to have 20,000, then that's your threshold. What you do above that doesn't matter. All right. Sashi says, hi Mark, what are the chances for a 396 CRS score? Sashi, my friend, I would say probably 0, unless you were able to qualify through some other route. 396 points for a bare CRS score for express entry isn't going to cut it anymore. In fact, I'm not even sure if 440 points will cut it anymore. Okay, Anil says, is it compulsory to have 7 band in each IELTS score? I have 10 years experience with 2-month gaps in between. Is it possible for me to come to Canada on a work visa? Anil, you've got a ton of different questions here. 7 band in IELTS is not enough. You need at least an 8 in listening and 7 in everything else. That's the minimum, the bare minimum. If you don't have that, you don't have a prayer. In terms of your work experience, in order to qualify through the Federal Skilled Worker Program, you need to have 1 year continuous. That's 12 straight months of work experience in a skilled occupation, 30 hours per week, 1,560 hours per year, and it must be paid. And if all of those things are present, then yes. But if you've had 2-month gaps in between each of them, well, you need to be able to explain it. And unless you're a teacher who continued to be paid maybe in the breaks, or there's some other justification, more than likely you won't be able to prove that you've been continuously employed. But there's always a way if you can justify it. All right, good question. Okay, Kopal says, once my sibling is planning to do their landing in Canada after getting the PR, how soon can I use their presence for PR points? What's the minimum duration for which the sibling needs to be in Canada for showing utilities? Well, Kopal, you've answered the question yourself. If they have proof that they're your sibling, they have a permanent resident card as proof of permanent resident status in Canada, and they have a utility bill showing that they are actually living and have utilities set up at their residence, then that's enough. All right. Manny says, thanks, Mark, for perfectly answering my query. Stay blessed. You bet, Manny. You are very welcome. And then Abdur says, hi. Hey, Abdur. Okay. Kopal says, can I use my sibling points from the day they land in Canada using COPR? Okay, I just responded to yours. Harpreet says, thank you. You're very welcome. Okay. This is a classic. All right, let's take a look at this and see what we say here. MD says, Rashadel says, exactly, sir, as you said, under an agent, as we are, and completely zero transparency. And as we push the lawyer's representative who deals with our file, the only thing we receive is that as GCMS notes are already there and many times asked for CSE, so the only thing to do is wait at this background security check stage. But more than a year is really too much with ITA and at this current stage. Can you confirm with me, Rashadel, that this is not an actual lawyer that is representing you? If they are a lawyer, then there are certain things that they should hopefully be doing to help you. Now, I will qualify unequivocally when I offer my gold package where it's full service. I do not offer a service where I give you weekly updates every week whether your status has changed or not. And I had this discussion with some of my clients. That is a complete and total waste of time for me and for the client, their mental anguish, wondering if their status is changing. All of those mean nothing. I'll be honest, they mean absolutely nothing, because ultimately the time period between each stage can differ with every single officer. And knowing where you're at in that process does nothing for you. I know some people are super curious, but in my office, I specifically do not provide weekly updates on status requests. If there is a significant advancement, in other words, there's something that the government asks us, or there's a step that we then have to do, we are all over it. We action it immediately. We notify our clients immediately. But we do not, I don't get hung up in all of the stages of express entry. There's nothing gained by it other than stressing yourself out why your advancement from one stage to the next is not going as fast as 3 other people. It just causes stress that isn't necessary. Focus on enjoying your life. You know you've got your ITA. You know you've submitted your EAPR. You know you've hired Mark and everything is awesome and perfect and it's going to get approved. Don't waste your time stressing over it. Enjoy your family. Enjoy your kids. Know that 6 months is the general processing time. And if it comes back sooner, then bonus. Then you can be super excited because you've set your expectation at 6 months and your application was processed in 4. Way better to manage your expectations that way. Okay, but Rashadel, I'd love to hear whether that was an actual lawyer. Okay, Anthony, hello, Mark. Is it mandatory for my relative in Canada to provide her notice of assessment or notice of assessment? No, it's not. As I indicated, and you know what? This is probably a good time to share it with you guys again. So here we go. Back into the completeness check, and then we're just going to type in sibling here and see what comes up for sibling. Oh, it doesn't. Okay, we'll go family member. Actually, do you know what? I know where this is. We're going to scroll all the way to the bottom because it's here. Okay, proof of relationship to a relative in Canada. Okay, so this is if you want to claim points for a sibling, for CRS points. So if we scroll down here, you can see documentation. This is required if you've got a family member who's a PR or a Canadian citizen. So a copy of both sides of their citizenship document, Canadian birth certificate or PR card, must be provided. Then, this is the key, evidence that the family member currently resides in Canada must be provided. So they use as examples, residential lease, so are you renting? Do you have a mortgage document or utility bills? And this document must show the address in Canada and should be recent. So you can see, what does recent mean? Well, it means that it must be dated within 6 months prior to submission. That's your EAPR. And then proof of the relationship between you and that person. Okay? So it could be a birth certificate or an official document naming the applicant as a relative, such as a passport that lists the family members on it. And a copy of the inside back cover, see, showing the relative's parents' marriage certificate or a legal adoption or other documents. Okay, and then it talks about stepbrother and stepsister. Well, your parents need to still be living together if you still want to claim them as steps. That's what that means. Okay, so there you go. Hopefully that one answered your question. All right. Okay, let's see what's next here. How are we doing for time here? 48 minutes. Wow, I didn't intend to be that long. Oh well, that's okay. So, Anthony, nope, NOAs are not mandatory. Okay, welcome Tinson. We've got you joining us. Razib says hi. Anantherum says hi. I'm getting a little bit better pronouncing the names. Anantherum, maybe? Well, one of the two. Vipin says, hi Mark, once we receive a request to submit the passports, how long does it take after the submission, or how does the process look like? If you got a passport request, it depends on the country. It depends on the visa office. Depends upon the VAC. Depends on so many things. Usually it can happen, you can get them back in a couple weeks to a month. That's usually the range. Razib says, can I include my car in my goods to follow list? I guess. So, but as far as that, that's a whole customs issue. And so that's definitely not something I can consider and try to answer here in this EE Live Q&A. But congratulations, Razib, on getting your confirmation of permanent residence. I recommend that you contact the Canada Border Service Agency and just ask them. And they can tell you what is needed in terms of importing your car, because there are certain rules associated with that. Okay, Anantherum says, you are one of the best guys in immigration. Oh, you guys, flattery is going to get you everywhere. Okay, I showed 20,000 Canadian. I draw a salary of 6 per month, but I had a cash savings of 6, as I always keep for urgency. I think emergency, as I stay in Middle East. I deposited the money in cash. Will it be a problem? I'm the secondary applicant. Will my experience letter be checked as we don't claim any points? Okay, you got quite a bit in there. Ultimately, you just need to show the source of the funds and explain it. If you already had those funds saved from something else and they're not like a gifted loan from someone else, then you just explain where the money came from, just like you explained here. As an accompanying spouse, yes, if you're going with your spouse, then you just need to confirm that the funds are available for everybody in the family group and when you go to land in Canada, and that's it. As far as work experience, you do not need a work experience letter because you, my friend, are not listing your foreign work experience in your work history section as a spouse. You're going to put, no, I don't have any work experience that I wish to claim points for. And then in your personal history, you're going to very carefully detail every ounce of the work experience that you have over the past 10 years. Okay, that's how you do it. Anthony says, thank you so much, Mark. And Razib says, thank you as well. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up there. Thanks so much for joining me in this fantastic EE Live Q&A, this impromptu one with no notice. And some people are probably wondering, man, Mark, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you give me advance warning? Guys, my life is a complete and total just unpredictable, crazy experience right now. And so I'm trying to be opportunistic, just like some of the other people who go in and answer the questions in our group. I just don't have the time to be able to do that anymore. This is the way I do it. And so I will post this out on our YouTube channel to all of the awesome YouTubers who are watching it. I'm going to have to figure out a nice little catchy tagline, though, because ultimately, this is just answering listeners' questions live. Excuse me. Those of you who are still watching this and tuning in, I want to let you know a little secret. And the secret, if I can find it right here, is this guide that I have that's full of answers, all of the things that we've been talking about today. You'll see if you go there, $497 US is what the full comprehensive step-by-step guide is. And it is literally that, a full video walkthrough. But those of you who are tuning in and watching these, if you go and you send me a message to my Facebook page, and those actually on YouTube, do you know what? Just give me a second here. I'm going to take a look. Let me just see here. I got to think for a second. See, this is what happens when you're doing things on the spot and you're just rolling with the punches and having a good time. I'm logging in here in the background to my course because I have in here, if I can find it and if it cooperates with me, I actually have, let's see if I can find it. Go, work for me. Seriously. Seriously. I'm having trouble logging into my own site. Let's see if this one works. That's hilarious. I can't even log into my own site. I'm not sure I can't even remember my password because it was saved. Anyways, let's see, what is it? Do you know what? I'm going to post in the comment section if you guys hang around there. Actually, I'm still offering a 50% off to people who tune into this. I don't advertise it anywhere else, but you guys have taken the time to watch. And if you watch all the way through to the end and are a true faithful follower, then understand I'm going to reward you guys. And so I'm actually going to, do you know what? If you just send me a message or send me an email and ask for the discount code, that's what I'll do. So it's a little extra step, but if you send this to mholthy@stringham.ca and say, hey, Mark, I want that 50% discount off of this awesome express entry do-it-yourself guide, then I will give you that code. That's probably the best way to do it. All right, so this is Mark Holthy here, wanting to remind you once again that I'm looking for new admins. So those of you tuning in a little bit late for the Facebook group, here's the instructions, why you'd be a good admin, where you live, and how long you've been a member of the group. And if you send that in a Facebook message to me, I would love to consider you as a moderator for our awesome 121,000 members. 121,000. It's amazing. And you can be a moderator and a part of this big, awesome group. Last but not least, I want to wish all of you awesome people from my family right here, at least the ones that are home, a very, very Merry Christmas this awesome holiday season. And I wish you guys all the best as you navigate this crazy world that we call express entry. Mark Holthe, Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher, signing off.